I'm not a lawyer, but if you're not keeping up with the Karen Reed trial, I don't know what to tell you. This trial is crazy. All right, let's get into day 15 and a little bit of 16 of the trial. The long-awaited cross-examination of Jennifer McCabe finally happens, and it is a doozy. This video is about to be long because there is so much that I just can't cut out. You gotta see it all.
Good morning. All right, Mr. Jackson, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCabe, family is important to you, is it not?
Yes.
As a matter of fact, it's probably fair to say that family is one of the most important things in your life.
Yes.
John O'Keefe was not family, was he?
No.
Karen Reed is not family, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you arrived at Fairview, some folks were already there, correct?
Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Caitlin Albert, Julie Nagel, Sarah Levinson, and Brian Albert Jr.
I want to ask a question about Mr. Higgins. You testified on Friday that you saw his vehicle when you got to the scene, correct?
Yes.
And you said that it was pulled up a little bit in front of the mailbox, correct?
Yes.
This would be the front door, correct?
Yes.
And where's the mailbox? Okay, so you're pointing to an area just in front of a car that's in the driveway, correct?
Yes.
And then the driveway is to the right,
Yes.
and then along this line is the front lawn area and property line of 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
You indicated that that Jeep was just a little bit in front of the mailbox, meaning about there, correct?
Yes.
And the rear end of that Jeep would be butting up against the driveway,
Yes.
or at least the line of the driveway, correct?
Yes.
That's quite a bit of detail about where that Jeep was. Would you agree?
Yes.
That detail obviously stuck out in your mind.
It did, because I was wondering whose Jeep it was.
Did you discuss that detail with your husband at any point?
Not sure. Possibly.
You're aware that he put the Jeep in the exact same place that you did.
Objection.
Are you aware of that?
I am. Oh, wait. No. Excuse me. Repeat the question?
You're aware that he puts the Jeep in the exact same spot you just put the Jeep, right in front of that mailbox, correct?
I know he knows where the Jeep was. I'm not aware of what he said in here.
Does he know where the Jeep was because you told him what to say about the Jeep?
Absolutely not. It's because we drove together in the car, and I asked. I possibly could have asked.
One at a time, please, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to step on your words. I thought you.
That's okay. You can continue.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So what they're talking about right here about this Jeep and the location of Karen's car, I had to dig in a little bit. So I'm going to be talking about this on my podcast. I'm not a lawyer, but the debrief, and the episode's going to release on Friday. I strongly suggest you go follow me on YouTube or download it wherever you listen to podcasts, because I'm going to attempt to dig into this parking situation.
So you did speak to Trooper Proctor on the 29th, correct?
Correct.
All right. And Trooper Proctor asked you some very specific questions about where things were, correct?
Correct.
Focused on Miss Reed's SUV, didn't he?
You can show me in the report.
Just read it.
So just off of what I just read, is that what you're going off of? Yes?
I'm asking for your memory. You're testifying.
Yes, so my memory is exactly where the car was.
Hold on.
I told him that when I looked out the front door, the car was straight ahead. And yes, it was facing up Chapman.
But you left out a little part by the driveway, correct?
That could have been his interpretation or an error on his part.
I see. So Trooper Proctor is wrong about what you said.
I 100% said it was straight out the front door.
Okay, next question,
Thank
please.
you, Your Honor. That looks like a report from Trooper Proctor of your interview, correct?
Correct.
That interview was taken on January 29th, correct?
Correct.
And you were asked what you saw, what you observed in front of 34 Fairview on that morning, correct? I'm sorry, the night before, correct?
He asked specific questions about Miss Reed's vehicle.
Okay. And when you said where you remember Miss Reed's vehicle being, you placed it in the exact spot where you're now saying there was a Jeep with a snowplow on it, correct?
Incorrect. I never placed Miss Reed's car in the spot where Mr. Higgins' vehicle was.
So as Trooper Proctor was taking notes about what you were saying, he just got it wrong.
You'd have to ask Trooper Proctor.
I will. And you never mentioned, according to that report, not one word about a Jeep, right?
I may never have been asked about a Jeep.
So if you weren't asked about a Jeep, you also weren't asked about a Nissan Altima. You mentioned that?
No.
Right. Because what he asked you was, what did you observe in front of the house? Ma'am, that's what he asked you, wasn't it?
No.
And you said, I observed her car by the mailbox.
No.
And you never mentioned the Jeep, did you?
You are not portraying what the conversation was. Do I speak to Chris and Julie Albert
Have you spoken to them about these events between then and now?
about this case? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, Ms. McCabe, I'm asking about this case.
Of course, I speak to them all the time about the vicious harassment we are all receiving.
Okay, but that wasn't my question. My question was, did you talk to them about this case, Ms. McCabe?
Yes,
I realize you want to give additional answers in the editorial. I'm asking you very specific questions. In the 2 years or 2.5 years since this event, you've had extensive conversations with your friends and family about this circumstance, correct? That's
correct.
fair to say.
Yes,
And you've talked to them extensively about your observations and what your story or your version is. Is that right?
to be honest, not extensively. Speaking about it is very painful and difficult.
What does extensively mean? More than twice?
Well, you tell me.
I'm asking the questions, Ms. McCabe. That's how this works.
I understand, but extensively would mean almost every day. It's the facts aren't spoken as much as the vicious harassment is spoken about.
Understood. And remind me, Chris and Julie Albert are, in fact, Colin's parents.
Correct.
At some point, you became aware that your daughter, Allie, was involved in this matter to some extent, correct?
Yes,
You became aware that there was an extraction of your phone that revealed some data about her whereabouts. You were asked about the Life 360.
yes.
So where did Allie go after she supposedly dropped off Colin Albert?
She went nowhere.
Did you check her Life 360 app to verify that she went, quote, nowhere?
At that point, I had no reason to check her.
So the answer is no, you didn't.
No,
Okay. Did you ever verify through the Life 360 app that in fact Allie did not go home, but rather was out driving until after 1:30 a.m.?
no,
Okay. But you believed her when she said she came home.
yes,
And just like you believed her when she said she picked up Colin, dropped him off, and then came home.
yes,
Okay. The Alberts have a dog, had a dog, pardon me, correct?
yes.
What was the dog's name?
Chloe,
You indicated that on the morning of January 29th, after 6 a.m., when it was still relatively dark out, you burst into the bedroom of Brian and Nicole Albert's home, correct?
yes,
You did that specifically to wake up, according to you, Brian Albert and Nicole Albert, correct?
yes.
Where was Chloe?
I don't know.
So you'll agree that, at least from their perspective, you walked in the front door unexpectedly, correct?
Yes,
You walked upstairs unexpectedly, correct?
yes,
Still dark outside, right?
yes,
You walked through their door, and you said you burst into the door into a dark room where they were sleeping, correct?
yes,
Mr. Albert said that you were somewhat hysterical. Would you agree with that?
yes.
You were loud, right?
I was trying to wake them up.
You were somewhat chaotic.
Yes,
And you don't remember a 70-pound German Shepherd having any reaction.
no,
Matter of fact, you don't remember the dog being there at all, correct?
correct.
You never saw that dog, correct?
I have no memory of seeing that dog.
Okay, so as you sit here today, you cannot say that the dog was here because you don't have a memory of ever seeing it.
I
Right?
did not see it, no.
And remind me once again, when you were leaving that night, that early morning before, who was the last person to leave? Was it Caitlin?
I believe she left after us.
We've talked about this, and I want to get into a little bit more detail about it. You indicated that at some point you looked outside and you saw Karen Reed's SUV in front of the house. Safe to say, correct?
Correct.
As you reviewed those pages, you were asked about the cars that you saw in front. Did you not?
I was asked about Miss Reed's vehicle.
Okay. And at no point did you mention a Jeep being behind Miss Reed's vehicle, as you testified today, correct?
The questions were all about Miss Reed's vehicle.
At no point, my question is this, it's yes or no. You did or you didn't. Did you mention, ever, in that grand jury, that there was a Jeep behind Miss Reed's vehicle? Yes or no?
I'm not sure. I'd have to read it all.
Let's try this again. As you sit here, do you recall mentioning the Jeep, ma'am?
I would have to reread the transcript.
You don't have to reread the transcript to answer that question. Do you recall mentioning the Jeep? If you don't, you don't.
I may not have been asked about the Jeep, so I did not mention the Jeep.
Fair enough. Did you and Mr. Higgins, between then and now, between the date of the incident and now, have you ever had a conversation with Mr. Higgins about where his Jeep was parked?
No,
Have you ever had a conversation with Mr. Higgins about anything having to do with this case?
I do not believe so.
You were asked by anybody to make sure you mention a Jeep being parked behind Miss Reed's SUV in this trial.
Not that I recall, no.
After you arrived and you noticed this SUV outside, you started paying somewhat close attention to it, did you not?
I went to the front door and looked out the window at the vehicle, yes.
As a matter of fact, you texted as soon as you saw the vehicle. that 12:27 here, correct?
Correct.
And then a few minutes later, at 12:31, you texted, pull behind me to John. Is that right?
Correct.
And then at 12:40, you texted, hello, correct?
Correct.
And at 12:42, you texted, where are you?
Correct.
And at 12:45, you texted, hello, correct?
Correct.
So that's 5 text messages. And each time you texted him, you were walking to the door and looking out at the vehicle as you're texting, correct?
I know for the first 2 I was.
You testified at another hearing, another proceeding, on June 8th, 2023. In that other proceeding, did you testify that you got up and sat down and got up and sat down every time you were texting?
Possibly.
Okay. So if you got up and walked over to the door and you see the SUV and you text, and then you walk away from the door and sit down for a second, that would be one text and one view of the SUV, correct?
Yes.
So if you did that at 12:27, 12:31, 12:40, 12:42, and 12:45, you'd agree that's 5 times that you were up and down looking at the SUV, correct?
I'm not sure if I did it 5 times.
How many times do you think you did do it?
I know I definitely did it the first when I said here. I know I definitely did it when I said pull behind me because that's when the vehicle had moved up a little bit.
Ms. McCabe, as you looked over that flat lawn with that good and clear view of the SUV, you could see the SUV and everything between you and the SUV, correct?
When I looked out the front window, I could see the SUV clearly, like I'm looking at you right now, and it was further away than you are.
And you did it not once, not twice, not 3 times. You did it 5 times and then a 6th after it was gone, correct?
Correct.
And after that SUV was gone, and you looked out that window with that clear and good view, there was no body, was there?
I never saw a body.
Thank you.
I wish I had.
Sounds like that's a little rehearsed.
Not at all. It's not at all.
I'll let the answer stand.
You left the location at about 1:45, is that right?
Yes.
You didn't see anything out of the ordinary as you got in. Was it your car or Mr. McCabe's car?
It was my car.
When you got in that SUV of yours, you didn't see anything out of the ordinary outside, correct?
I wasn't looking outside.
Okay. I know that that is the answer that you want to give to every question. My question is yes or no. Did you see anything out of the ordinary?
No.
Thank you. You didn't see anything out of the ordinary when you got in the vehicle?
No.
You didn't see anything out of the ordinary when vehicle backed up?
No.
When that vehicle turned to the, I guess it would be to the right, to leave toward Chapman, and the headlights illuminated the area in front of you?
I wasn't looking out the front window.
Again, there's that question. There's that answer. My question is, did you see anything out of the ordinary?
Well, you were asking about the headlights out the front. That's why I said I didn't see anything out there front.
Oh, you testified on Friday that my client said at the scene, I hit him 3 times. She declared it, correct?
Correct.
You have a very specific memory of that event, do you not?
I do.
You did review your grand jury testimony, correct?
Yes.
Ms. McCabe, I'd like you to turn to the page, since you've reviewed this, turn to the page of that document where you ever said in your testimony that my client said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
Was I asked what she said? Well, I'd like you to direct me where to look.
I want you to look at the entire grand jury testimony if you need to, and turn to the page where you ever said that my client said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him.
I'm not sure if it's in this document, but I can tell you today with 100% clarity, she said, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him on that morning.
So it's not in that document, is it?
I'm not sure if I could take the time, and do you want me to read over 200 pages?
No, I don't want to take the time. Because you just indicated that you reviewed this document in anticipation of your testimony, right?
Correct.
So you've gone over it recently.
A few weeks back.
So we don't need to read it. You know that you never testified to that in the grand jury in April of 2022, don't you?
I don't know that as a fact. I would have to reread 222 pages, or however long it is.
You called your sister at 6:07 and 42 seconds, correct?
I don't have my phone record in front of me,
Does that sound about right?
approximately.
And you made a second phone call at 6:08 and 17 seconds. Does that sound about right?
I did call her twice, yes.
And both of those calls show in your extraction that they were answered phone calls, correct?
I don't have my extraction in front of me. Well, if you have them, I could see them here. My sister never answered the phone.
I know you want to answer your own questions.
Yeah.
I'd like it if you'd answer my question. Were you shown records that showed the call lasted 7 seconds?
I cannot recall the exact record I was shown, but I was shown a phone record.
Okay, and you were shown that the same phone record showed that the 608 call lasted 8 seconds, right?
Again, I don't have it in front of me. If you could share my phone record, it would be very helpful.
The calls to Nicole were deleted from your phone before you turned that phone into law enforcement, weren't they?
Not by me.
By somebody else?
I never deleted any calls when I willingly handed my phone over.
You claim that you didn't delete calls, but you do know that your phone was forensically analyzed, and those calls were in the deleted file folder, correct?
I have seen that, but there were 20 calls, all in a group that were all deleted. So cherry picking a few makes it look a different way. So it was a bit of a hysterical scene that morning, and I was in a state of shock, and I was just calling my sister and my brother-in-law. They did not answer the phone. I cannot tell you when I hung up, because it was a hysterical scene. I was in a state of shock. Everyone was running around, and what seems to be forgotten is that my friend was lying there on the ground.
Oh, I don't think anybody's forgotten that. Do you recognize that document?
I do, yes.
At 12:14, it shows that you called John O'Keefe and that call was answered. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
At 12:18 a.m., it shows that John O'Keefe called your phone and that was answered as well.
Correct.
And then at 12:29 a.m., you also called John O'Keefe's phone. That one in the Celebrate extraction, it shows in terms of whether the call was answered or not, the status is unknown, correct?
At 12:29. Unknown, yes.
Unknown. According to this, there were 6 more calls between your phone and John O'Keefe's phone.
Correct.
Counting, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's that's up to 12:50 a.m. Is that right?
Correct.
Take a look at the last couple of pages, page 3 and 4 of your own cell phone extraction report, and tell me if you see a single call listed between you and John O'Keefe for January 29th between 12:14 and 12:50.
There are calls to a number that I'm assuming is John.
What
I'm
time?
just not sure. Wait a minute. This report has times everywhere.
Right. It's chronological except for the calls that were deleted. The fact of the matter is, according to those Celebrite records and that extraction from your own phone, every one of the calls that you made to John O'Keefe's phone between 12:29 and between 12:14 and 12:50 a.m. was deleted and unrecovered. Correct?
I didn't understand that report, and I'm not an expert. I'm confused. That paper, I don't understand it. It was vague. There were numbers. There were calls everywhere. There was a number of missing calls. The numbers, I don't know people's phone numbers. I just have them as contacts.
Ms. McCabe, you just said a second ago, and we can do this all day long, or we can just make it simple. The fact of the matter is that report did not show any of the calls that John O'Keefe's phone report showed, correct? From 12:14 to 12:50.
I believe there was one on there.
5:52. That's the next morning, ma'am. Right?
Were there other calls in that time period on the Celebrate?
You just said there weren't. You just looked at them.
I've told you that Celebrate report was extremely hard to read.
You sanitized your phone because you didn't want the police to know who you had been calling or the fact that you had been calling John O'Keefe's phone incessantly, correct?
Incorrect. I willingly turned over my phone.
After you deleted your phone call logs, correct?
Absolutely not.
Did you delete any of your calls before you turned your phone into law enforcement?
I spoke with the 2 officers that I handed my phone over to, and I asked if I could delete the personal conversations with my daughters. And they said absolutely yes, that I could.
So other than calls with your daughters that you did you delete any other calls on your phone at all?
There were text messages. It was actually text messages with my daughters that I deleted, and that was all I deleted.
Did you delete any phone calls?
I do not recall deleting any phone calls at all. I would have no reason to delete anything.
So that's very different than I didn't delete any phone calls. I do not remember deleting phone calls. Means you might have.
In day-to-day life, people delete things, but I do not recall deleting any phone calls.
In day-to-day life, did you delete any of the calls to John O'Keefe?
No.
Did that group chat, I'm most interested in the group chat between yourself, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Matt McCabe, on or around, that group chat starting on or around February 1st, 2022.
Okay.
Did you receive a message from your husband on the group, quote, ask Chris to ask some questions, tell them the guy never went in the house, end quote?
That is not how I would understand this. John never went in the house. It wasn't a story. It was the truth. and it is the truth.
But this chat is Matt McCabe, your husband, telling Chris Albert, who was never at the house and would have no personal knowledge of what happened at the house, to specifically say, the guy never came in the house. The guy, by the way, being John O'Keefe.
That's what he wrote.
Does that sound to you a little bit like collusion?
Objection.
At some point, you sought out Carrie Roberts' cell phone number.
I wanted to speak to Carrie as she was on her way to the hospital, and I wanted to check in on John. It had nothing to do with getting in touch with her by the end of the day. It was a friend reaching out, wondering how her friend was doing, who was just taken off the front lawn.
And you said just a second ago, you were claiming that you needed that information because you knew that she was on the way to see John O'Keefe's parents,
She was picking them up.
and you wanted to check on them.
Correct. I wanted to speak with Carrie, see how she was doing. I was not going to call Peg.
You had her phone number, didn't you?
I do, yes.
So if you wanted to check on somebody, you could have just called her.
I was not going to call Peg O'Keefe on the way to see her son at the hospital. I wanted to ask Carrie. I'm sure she was boggled down and probably did not want to speak with anyone. It was a simple thing. I made sure I got Carrie Roberts' number so I could check in and see how John was doing. Also, we had just been through an extremely traumatic event together. There's nothing evil here.
Carrie Roberts' number, Ms. McCabe, is because you wanted to make sure that you controlled her story as she left your site, correct?
Absolutely not.
Did you write a text to the group, including Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, and Matt McCabe, where you informed them that, quote, Carrie is here going over timeline, end quote?
Correct.
So you reported back to Brian, Nicole, and Matt that Carrie was where?
She came over my house.
And you two sat down and went over a, quote, timeline together. 15.
It's very hard to just look at two texts and try to understand what the context is.
Ms. McCabe, if you don't understand a question that I have, just let me know, but otherwise let me ask a question. On page 2168, at 5:15, you wrote the group, you listening?
Yes,
And at the same time, 5:15, you then wrote, cops here again, end quote, correct?
correct.
That was in reference to the police coming over to your house to further interview Carrie Roberts, wasn't it?
That was when they came to talk to me.
And Carrie Roberts was there,
Was
correct?
at my house, correct.
And a few minutes later, at 5:23, Nicole Albert texts, call us after, correct?
Correct.
And a few minutes after that, Matt McCabe texts, quote, this girl could write a book, ... nonstop, correct?
Correct.
So obviously Matt McCabe, along with you, was listening to Carrie Roberts in her interview.
We were sitting in the kitchen eating dinner with our children, and Carrie Roberts was in a different room, but she was going on and on and on,
How do you
as
know?
she does, because they were in the other room.
And you could listen.
I could hear voices.
You could hear her interview with the police.
Did not hear her interview. I could hear them talking, but I was sitting at a table with my children eating dinner, getting ready to go to a basketball game.
You then responded to Matt McCabe, I love it.
Yes.
And then you responded, quote, she is telling them everything.
Yes.
End quote. Correct?
Yes.
So what you said just a few minutes ago about not knowing what she was saying, I could just hear voices, that was a lie.
It was.
Okay.
Objection.
Sustained.
And a couple of seconds later, Nicole Albert responds, one word. What was her response?
Good.
At the end of the day, you were eavesdropping on an interview that Carrie Roberts was having with law enforcement in their official capacity, weren't you?
No, I was sitting eating dinner, and some of the things, obviously, I overheard, but I was not eavesdropping. I'm saying there's a possibility, if I'm sitting in this room eating dinner and someone's in another room talking, you can hear bits and pieces. Was I eavesdropping? No. Is there some big cover-up story? No.
Well, why, Ms. McCabe, does your testimony keep evolving? A second ago, you told this jury, you said, I couldn't hear a thing. All I could hear was voices, like muffled voices from the other room. She was going on and on about something.
Yeah.
And then when I confronted you with a text message where you said, she's telling them everything, now it's, well, I may have heard a couple of things. Which is it?
No, she was going on and on and on like she does.
And you were listening on and on and on like you do.
I was probably hearing bits and pieces. We had both lost our friend. Carrie Roberts was in shock, as was I in shock. The two of us had all this information that just kept coming back to us and back to us. And it's terrifying when you go through an experience and you're in shock. And Carrie was remembering things. I was remembering things. So I was happy for her that she was piecing it all together, and I had pieced it all together because at the end of the day, our friend was dead, and we were trying to figure out what had happened to him together. There was no direction. We were all trying to figure out what had happened, because that's what you do when you lose somebody you love. There is no story. There's facts and truth on this side. There's no story. The story that you've created is not the truth.
Did I create it? I hit him, or did you?
That's fact.
There's yet another text from Brian's wife, Nicole, on January 29th, and this is on page 2226. We'll get more info tomorrow. Don't want to text about it, end quote. And then you texted, right, correct?
Correct.
What's that about?
We decided that we would talk on the phone. My children look on my phone. Her children look on her phone. We were working with the police. I was sharing information and everything that had happened. We didn't want it to leave our little circle because we were trying to figure out what happened, and we're not going to go running around letting people see, oh my gosh, they think this might have happened or that might have happened. It was nothing more than let's not text about it. Not secret and private. We just weren't going to communicate certain things over text.
Okay, what did Mr. Tully tell you, Trooper Tully? What exactly did he tell you at this meeting about this Michael Lank issue?
He said, did you go to Michael Lank's on January 30th? And at first I said, no, I've never been to his house. And then I thought about it and I said, oh my gosh, yes, I did go there. And that was the extent of the conversation.
You said, yeah, I did go there, and he didn't ask a follow-up, like, what the heck were you doing at Michael Lank's house the day after this issue?
Objection.
This incident?
I'll allow it.
He didn't ask a follow-up like that?
I do not believe he did.
So, Trooper Tully, had you come down for an interview, he confronted you with a fact that had never been disclosed before, to wit, you showed up at Michael Lank's house, and when you said, yeah, oh yeah, hang on, I think your words were, oh my gosh, yeah, I think I did go there. And he didn't ask a follow-up question? Yes,
You're spinning all of this.
Ma'am, I do a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't spin. There's a judge here to make sure that I don't spin. I'm asking you a question. It's very direct.
I do not believe he asked me a follow-up question.
So that was the end of that conversation about Michael Lank, correct?
Correct.
I want to focus your attention on or about, or at or about 12:14 a.m., moving up to about 12:50 a.m. You have that time in mind?
Yes.
There was a call at 12:14 a.m. That was a call that you indicated was answered. There was a call at 12:18 and 47 seconds. That call also was answered. Then there's the 12:29 and 44 second call that you indicated was not answered. There was a 12:41 call from you to John O'Keefe. There was a 12:41 and 54 second call from you to him. Is that right?
Correct.
There was a 12:43 and 19 second call from you to him. 12:46 a.m. and 16 seconds from you to him. 12:47 and 52 seconds from you to him, and 12:50 and 37 seconds from you to him, correct?
Correct.
You saw in his extraction report that all of those calls after 12:18 were missed calls, correct?
I believe so. I would have to refer to it again because I've seen so many reports.
And Ms. McCabe, according to the extraction reports that you've seen this morning, comparing yours to his, every single one of those calls was deleted off your phone, according to the reports.
According to that report, yes.
Let me ask you another question. Have you ever misplaced your phone?
Yes.
Just in life, everybody does it, right?
Yes.
What's one of the first things you do if you're with your daughter or your husband or a friend and you're in your house and you misplace your phone? What do you do?
I'll ask them to call my phone.
Even over and over and over, right?
Correct.
Could be as many as 5, 6, 7 times.
Usually I hear it the first or second time.
You're looking for a buzz or a ring, isn't that right?
Correct.
And you might do that if you're searching for a missing phone, correct?
Correct.
With regard to the calls that were deleted from your phone, you were asked about this under oath at another proceeding, weren't you?
Correct.
And you claimed at another proceeding that you had an explanation for all these missed calls, starting at 12:29, 12:41, 12:41, 12:43, 12:46, 12:47, 12:50. You have an explanation for that, right?
Can I see the report?
I'm asking you about your prior testimony.
And I'm asking,
About these calls,
yes, I'm asking, can I see it, please?
I'm asking you a different question. At this other proceeding, which you were under oath,
Yes.
right? You explained that these calls were what? These missed calls, incessant missed calls. What were they? You used a word. I reckon 2 words.
I believe I used the word butt dials.
You claimed that every one of these calls was a butt dial. Is that right?
Yes.
So according to you, you literally butt dialed John O'Keefe's phone 6 times in the span of 19 minutes. Is that right?
I don't remember making any of those calls, so my assumption is I put my phone in my back pocket, and that was it.
When you dial someone by mistake, you hit a button, set your phone down, the phone has to be open. You'll hear that, right?
Correct?
Can't be locked. It takes several iterations of movement to get a phone open. Face ID or password, right?
Correct.
So when you hit the button by mistake, walk away. That's a butt dial. People call butt dials. What happens with the call?
I assume it goes to voicemail?
It's a good assumption, because that's exactly what it does, isn't it? You've had a phone for a lot of years, right?
Yes,
It rings and rings and rings until it goes to voicemail.
correct.
So in order to hang up that butt dial, you have to interact with that phone yet again, don't you?
Yes.
So if you had 6 butt dials, 7, I think it's 7 butt dials, you'd not only have to interact with the phone once to butt dial John, you'd then have to interact with it every single time to turn off that phone ringer so it doesn't go to voicemail,
I suppose.
which makes 14 interfaces with that phone over the course of 19 minutes. Is that right?
I mean, I guess I don't have it all right in front of me, but there were also text messages I was sending. So again, maybe I said, oh, shoot, I called him, and then I turned it off.
But your claim is you don't remember those incessant butt dials and those incessant hangups at all, correct?
I honestly don't.
So that means you would have had to interact with that phone 14 times over the course of 19 minutes at the exact time frame that the Commonwealth suggests John O'Keefe lost his life.
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask that differently, and this will be your last question for today, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The period between 1229 and 1250, which is the exact period that you were, quote, butt dialing John multiple times, that's also the exact period that John O'Keefe was rendered incapacitated. Isn't that right?
Objection.
That's sustained. We'll start up again tomorrow, okay?
Thank you.
These next clips are from day 16, and I live watched with my Patreon, so you're going to see me in a couple of these clips.
Ms. McCabe, we talked yesterday about this unrecorded meeting that you had in front of Sergeant Lank's home on January 30th. Do you remember that conversation?
I remember the conversation, yes.
Have you had any other home visits with any other police officers involved in this case?
I went to Elizabeth Proctor, the wife of Michael Proctor's house.
Who does Elizabeth Proctor live with?
Michael Proctor.
So you actually went to Michael Proctor's personal residence, didn't you?
I did, yes.
That was in September of what year?
23. I went over.
2023.
Yes. I met Elizabeth Proctor in approximately July or August of 2023. We are 2 mothers that are being viciously terrorized and harassed by social media. Things that were stated in this courtroom and allegations that were made have torn our lives upside down. We receive hate letters saying that they
I'm
hope
asking you
things.
why? I know you want to give a narrative.
She gets to answer this, Mr. Jackson. The door's open.
We receive letters, we receive emails, we receive calls. People drive by our house. There was a rolling rally. They took a picture of my daughter and put semen on it and said property of some named blogger that I think the defense is very familiar with. So that is why myself and Elizabeth Proctor got together. Michael Proctor was not home. We are 2 mothers trying to get through the unthinkable together.
So GPS, you've seen the forensic extraction or part of it, correct?
Which one are you referring
Of your
to?
phone. The forensic extraction of your phone.
I saw what you showed me yesterday from Celebrate.
That's what I mean.
Okay,
From
I'm-
Celebrite, part of it.
I saw, yeah, the phone calls, yes.
Okay. You're aware that that extraction shows that you got home after 2 a.m. or so. So that would be generally correct.
Correct.
The Celebrite extraction shows from your Apple Health data that you actually went up a set of stairs. That would be accurate, correct?
Accurate.
The Celebrite data shows that you actually logged into your phone, did a login, either Face ID or a passcode, opened up the phone. That would be accurate.
Correct.
The Celebrite data shows that you were engaging with an app called Safari to engage some Google searches, correct?
Yes.
That would be generally accurate as well, correct?
Yes.
So after you opened up Safari, you indicated that you Google searched something about ozone basketball. Is that right?
Yes.
That was sometime after 2 a.m., right?
Yes.
Was there anything else on your mind in that early morning hour time frame?
Don't believe so.
Ms. McCabe, if you wanted to know in general how long it takes for a human being to pass away because of exposure to extreme temperatures, right? If you wanted to know the answer to that, what would you Google search? What phrase would you use?
I'm not sure. All I recall is what the defendant asked me to Google in the morning.
If you wanted to know, I'm asking a different question.
Mhm.
If you personally wanted to know, how long does it take for a person to die of exposure due to extreme temperatures, what would you put in? What phrase would you use?
Objection.
Sustained.
Well, we don't have to guess at the phrase that you would use if you wanted to know something about dying of hypothermia, do we? Because you actually Google searched it.
Objection.
Sustained. Ask that differently, please.
Did you, in fact, use a phrase to Google search how long it takes for someone to die of extreme temperatures?
I did in the morning at the request of your client.
Okay. And what phrase did you use?
I'm not sure.
Really?
Correct. I was.
After 2.5 years of this, you don't know the phrase that you used?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
There's so many lies
Okay,
and
there's no
misconceptions on
question.
social media.
No question.
Oh, I apologize.
Are you telling me you don't remember what Google search you put in?
Karen was screaming. My hands were shaking, and she was saying, Google hypothermia. How long does it take to die in the cold?
And what phrase did you put in your phone? I'm just asking you to say it.
Why don't you show me it?
You literally don't remember?
Again, she was screaming, Google hypothermia. How long does it take to die in the cold?
How about,
And I picked up my phone and I started Googling.
and you literally to this day, right now, under oath, you're saying you don't remember that phrase that you used.
I'm saying that at her
Do you remember it or do you not, Ms. McCabe? That's a simple question.
that morning, I don't remember specifically what I Googled, but I do know what you've put out to the social media.
How about this? HOS long to die in cold. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it's been
Why
everywhere
does that sound so familiar?
because you've put it out in social media.
Well, I haven't put anything out in social media because I don't personally have social media.
I'm sorry, Turtle Boy did.
So if the world happens to know it,
Mhm.
that's not on me, is it?
I guess not.
I guess not. HOS long to die in cold is what you put in to the Google search, right?
If you say so.
Is there a reason that you don't want to admit to that?
Absolutely not.
It's a simple question, right?
No reason.
So say it. What Google search did you use?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were seeking at some point to Google how long to die in the cold, correct?
Correct.
And you made a mistake and mistakenly typed HOS long to die in cold, correct?
You could show me it. I'd appreciate it.
What does that Google search say?
House long to die in cold.
Now, you indicate that you did that, you made that search at 6:23 a.m., correct?
Correct.
And then you indicated that you did it again thereafter at 6:24, correct?
Correct.
At 6:24, you misspelled the phrase and you spelled it as follows: how long TI die in CIKD, correct?
Correct.
You've indicated under direct examination that these two searches were at 6:23 and 6:24 a.m., right?
I don't know if I gave exact times, but I said it was in the morning and Karen had asked me to do it.
And exactly, you claimed that you searched it because Karen was screaming at you and yelling at you, Google hypothermia, and you Googled how long does it take for a person to die? I'm sorry, she said something like, how long does it take for a person to die of hypothermia? And you Google searched it at 6:23 and 6:24. Is that right?
Again, I'm not sure about the exact times. I just did it after Karen asked me to do it.
And you're aware, Ms. McCabe, that both spellings, both misspellings of that phrase result in the exact same search results, don't they?
I'm not aware of that, no.
Well, you Googled them, ma'am. You're looking on your phone and you Googled it. HOS long to die in cold and how long to die in CIKD. Both of those. You Googled them, right?
I did, yes.
And they result in the exact same search results, don't they?
I have no idea.
So my question to you is, why the two searches?
She was standing next to me screaming, shaking my hand. My hand was cold. I was trying to Google it. Obviously, maybe whatever came up first didn't make sense because I had some misspellings, so I did it again. We never got the chance to read it. I don't remember exactly what came up.
Well, what came up was something about dying of hypothermia, didn't it?
That's what she asked.
So why do it again? Why do it again, Ms. McCabe? You had the result. Why the second search?
I cannot answer that beyond telling you that my hands were frozen. She was shaking me and screaming at me.
You see this first search that says "Hos long to die in cold"?
I do.
What's that time?
You've got the, it's right over at 2:27
AM or PM?
a.m.
Ms. McCabe, you made that search at 2:27 a.m. because you knew that John O'Keefe was outside in your sister's lawn dying in the cold, didn't you?
Absolutely not. I did not make that search at that time. No.
Realized the next morning, after John was discovered, after 6 a.m., that you had an incriminating search on your phone, didn't you?
Absolutely not.
To cover your tracks, you searched it again in order to overwrite the original search at 2:27, correct?
Again, absolutely not.
But you were nervous and you screwed it up. So the first search you made at 6:23 was "Hos long to die in CIKD," wasn't it?
No.
Well, you see the search right there, correct?
I see the search, but I disagree with your narrative.
And what's the time frame of that search?
6:23.
And you agree that that time frame is accurate, right?
Again, it's what the report says. I remember Googling it at the request of the defendant. Yes.
About 27 seconds apart, correct?
Yes.
But the reality is your first search didn't comport with the 2:27 a.m. search, did it? It was a different spelling, wasn't it?
I never searched a 2:27. That is not reality.
But the 6:24 search did exactly mirror the search that, according to this report, took place at 2:27, correct?
I'm sure Celebrite will be able to explain it to you. I can't.
And then of those three searches, one of them ended up deleted. Isn't that right?
I never deleted any search.
Take a look at the Celebrite report. Top search, and the column marked deleted. What do you see?
I see a yes.
Did you delete that search because you knew that you would be implicated in John O'Keefe's death if that search was found on your phone?
I did not delete that search. I never made that search at 2:23. I never would have left John O'Keefe out in the cold to die because he was my friend that I loved.
But he's not your family, is he?
Family and friends.
Is he not
Objection.
your...
Sustained.
Wait. That was great. Let me tell you why. When he started off her testimony, when she came to the stand for cross yesterday, the first thing he said was, you know Karen Reed, you know John O'Keefe. Family is important to you, but are either of those people family? And she was like, he said, is John O'Keefe your family? No. Is Karen Reed your family? No. Their last name is not Albert. Their last name is not McCabe. And you really care about family. So he just said, but they're not your family. Come on, circle back. All right. There it is. We're going to be talking about this on my podcast. I'm not a lawyer, but the debrief. There's no court on Thursday, so this trial will be back in session on Friday. Are y'all watching this? Please tell me what you think in the comments.